The feminine principle. Female is the quality that is correlated with the will. Female is given the property of the negative charge, just as the will is, and just as darkness has been. Feelings are equated with female and action with male. Women, then, have been equated with the term negative, and negative has been equated with undesirable. In truth, negative is not darkness. Negative is the energy that vibrates the darkness so that it has movement. Movement can then open to receive light. In people, this energy is emotional energy. People must realize that feelings expressing as emotions open them to receive light. Holding emotions because they are judged unacceptable creates resistance to light. Feelings are a divine and necessary part of man and woman. It is essential for Earth at this time to recognize and align with the negative receptive energy which has been so misunderstood and maligned. When the position of the will is restored to balance within both men and women, action and receptivity will balance and blend according to what is appropriate. Sex and children. The children born of the balance of the male and female principles within and between the parents will also be able to balance, and they will be able to unfold into life on earth in the kind of family situation that will respect, accept and nurture this spiritual balance. When children being born can experience an environment that nurtures their true being, the evolutionary process will speed up tremendously. No longer will adults have to spend time attempting to release conditioning received in childhood. Children will be able to grow and evolve within the family from the start. It is a real possibility to attune yourself so that any children you have in the future will attune to you and the rest of your family. Understanding spiritual balance yourself can bring spiritual balance to the entire family. Family members you already have may or may not accept this growing spiritual attunement in you. Family members on earth at present do not always have the same destiny paths or the same sense of timing. Possessive love has tried to pressure abdication of true nature and personal destiny paths in favour of images held by family members as to what that particular family is meant to be. Many of the problems on earth and within the family relationship can be traced to sex without love or sex with only conditional love. The spiritual sanctity of sex is not in its right place when sex is treated as something dirty, funny, or less than sacred. Sex is not to be placed outside of my loving acceptance by being labelled something to be outgrown or given up when spiritual awareness is seriously sought. Sex is not meant to be evil, base, lustful, animalistic, or any of the other judgments it has received. The questions that some people raise about loose sex are founded in a feeling that something isn't right about it, but it is sex without love and not sex without societal approval that brings these feelings. Each person must be responsible to himself about this, as no one yet can determine for another on earth whether love is present or not. Just trying to be present to determine this affects the flow between the people, and this is why it's not a matter of settlement by any other than the people involved. Even though most people on earth have not yet experienced unconditional love for one another, this is now needing to happen and must not be thought to be impossible. Everyone has the experience of loving parts of another person and being very annoyed or maybe even furious over other things that same person does. It has been thought to be that when you love someone, you have to put up with whatever they do that doesn't please you. This is conditional love. The way to find unconditional love is to accept and come to peace with everything in your own being, and then, even though it may now seem to be another impossible dream, you really will find that you can love and accept others unconditionally. In this way, the undercurrent dissatisfactions that are now present in almost every single relationship, be it husband and wife, brother and sister, parent and child, friends or relatives, will either not be there or will be resolved. The reason and emphasis is being put on sex in relationship to this is when people have sex together, they open their energy fields to one another, and everything they have in their energy fields mingles together. If there is pain, it's passed back and forth. If there is fear, anger or doubt, this mingles. Anything that is held in the energy field is mingled together during sex. The people involved really do open to each other at all levels of their existence. If the ones involved claim they have only love and do not accept any of the dissatisfied undercurrents they have, they are having sex in the presence of denial. Sexual energy is supposed to increase the light on earth, but it is also been increasing the denial on earth. Personal denial participates in personal reality, but its participation is denied. Denial participates in the reality of sex, but it is being held outside of loving acceptance. Sexual energy is magnetic. Magnetic energy attracts what it is vibrating to. This is the magnetic force of desire. The presence of denial means you attract denial. So many people have increased denial on earth this way that the ones able to see it have thought that sex brings darkness to earth. The true understanding is that sex in the presence of denial has been bringing darkness to earth. Instead of each situation being seen for what it is, judgments have angered many people, and they have counter-judged that it was just some terrible religious ban and prejudice against people enjoying their bodies. It is not. The understanding of the sanctity of sex has been, for the most part, lost. When openness occurs in the presence of more darkness than light, the magnetic attraction is not for light, but for darkness. And this darkness is in a state of denial, and so it is not open to receive light. Not only do people doing this increase their own state of denial and lessen their own light, but the children they attract to be born through these unions are spirits that carry the same kind of energy that was present between the parents at the time of the spirit's conception. The understanding needed now on earth is that many people, without realizing it, have left themselves open to attract to themselves darkness they cannot handle. It's a reflection of what they don't accept in themselves, and it is more than that too, but not something that is going to be further explained right now. This darkness, then, is in themselves and in their own children. Many people think that child raising is not so pleasant, but that it is a necessity. Even though people realize it's supposed to be and claim it is a loving, wonderful experience, the truth of the matter is that many parents are having trouble accepting their children unconditionally and vice versa. Many parents have mixed feelings about their children, just the same as they do about their partners. This is no accident. There is a definite relationship. The more alignment you have, the more alignment you will attract in a partner and in your children. The more denial present, the more denial is attracted. The more non-acceptance in the parents, the more unaccepting the spirits will be that get born through them. In discussing this subject, in fact, it is necessary to point out something else. Any time a parent allows the birth of a child it does not really want, there is an accompanying risk of allowing into the earth a spirit that does not mind overriding the feelings of others in favour of itself, because this spirit entered earth against the wishes of the ones bringing it into the world. Knowing yourself is important, so that you can know whether you really want the child or whether a confusion about individual will and divine will is causing you to accept a child you do not really want. In any case, the child that is not totally wanted is not a child of unconditional love. At present, abortion is actually preferable to increasing the presence of spirits that will deny others in favour of themselves, and preferable to increasing denial in general. Having a baby because society says it's required and abortion is not allowed brings more spirits that are not in harmony with respecting others. Pregnancy is a two-way street. Both the baby and the parents have to be considered. Earth is reaping the harvest of its practices by experiencing the expression of spirits not in harmony with one another. If there is alignment, conception will only take place, no matter what day of the cycle, if the parents both want a child and the right child for them also wants to enter at that time. Living with the fear that unwanted pregnancies are part of life is not necessary. Unwanted pregnancies cannot happen if the persons involved are balanced, and also cannot happen if you use the birth control method you feel is necessary until your body tells you that it is no longer necessary. If you are on your way toward balance and are making this clear, then spirits will not seek to incarnate against your will, because they will know that you will not allow it. During the time balance is being sought, unconditional acceptance of everything that happens along the way is needed. If the reality of unwanted pregnancy presents itself, you have denial you need to find. Look over everything that presents itself about the situation and learn without making judgments. The conditioning that sperm are madly swimming towards the egg no matter what, and that barriers to this are the only hope, must be released. Sperm can be guided by the consciousness in which they are ejaculated. This is why some people wanting children and having low probability for producing them are able to do it anyway. This guidance is the consciousness of both parents, not just the male or prospective father. The persons involved must both be clear about whether they want a child at this time or not, and the harmony must be at all levels between them, not just mental or just sexual or just feeling good with each other or any other partial acceptance. If, on the way to balancing, you are not finding wholly compatible partners, some birth control is still going to be necessary. So see the situation as evolving towards a time when birth control is a thing of the past, and the balance between spirits experiencing sex with one another is going to increase the light on Earth and guide the process of conception to attract only spirits in harmony with the destiny path of Earth. Rest assured that this can happen quickly, but don't pressure yourself to be there before you really are. Allow yourself the space needed to learn what you need to learn so that you can evolve. The outer reflection that will bring this evolution is close at hand, and the conception of a child at this time, I want to remind you, is going to reflect you at this time. You will then have yourself and your child to align at the same time. So unless you can have total acceptance of whatever is going to happen, I recommend a temporary moratorium on pregnancy. This will not stop anyone from having children if they desire to later. It will protect people from the grief of being perhaps unable to save themselves or their children from what is happening on Earth. As much as possible, the energy now is needing to focus on bringing the self to the balance necessary for the coming times. Survival will then be ensured and children can come later. Spirits incarnating now must be able to accept having an extremely will-orientated position for the balancing about to take place. If they cannot accept this position, they are heavily denying me, because I've informed all spirits not in the physical plane. You are going to be able to have children and lovingly care for them with much joy if you allow yourself to recover first. Having children without recovering first will bring more pain for the spirit and the will to have to work out. I'm recommending that pregnancy be avoided until the spirit and the will are brought to the place where they can do this without any pain. Pain in childbirth, for example, is just another expression of less than total attunement between the spirit and the will, and between the mother and the child. Total attunement never brings a painful or life-threatening situation to the birth experience. The understanding needed is that judgment here is not useful. The pain of the will increases each time it gives birth without unconditional recognition of the sacredness here. In taking responsibility for attracting spirits to earth, people must realize that they have thus far, through misunderstandings, created a situation that is not allowing anyone to fulfill their destiny path completely. The openings made through conditional love have allowed mixed spiritual presence on earth. The openings provided without love have allowed loveless spirits to enter the earth. Free will between people. Mixed presence on earth has resulted in no one on earth being able to completely fulfill his or her own destiny path. Everyone has been finding they can do only some of the things they want to do. Many have thought that compromise was necessary, but compromise is a judgment, usually in advance of the experience, that the entirety of the proposal is not appropriate. This impedes the evolutionary process because no one compromising finds out if their own approach works or not. Compromise is really no more reasonable than denying parts of people in order to force them into the same destiny path. In having believed that free will between people carries complications requiring compromise, change here needs to come, and is going to come as a result of the process of freeing your own will. This process is going to change relationships and bring many new understandings. No amount of discussion can take the place of really experiencing this. Freeing your will is going to show you that free will between people is entirely possible, and not in the ways being presently attempted on earth. The experience itself is needed to show how it can actually take place, that everyone can do exactly as they wish without having to compromise, be overridden by another, or be overriding toward another. And it will be seen that relating in this way can take place without imbalance or potential destructive denials. You need to start with yourself and let the rest unfold to you. The way to resolve situations between people now on earth is not going to be as easy as it would have been if it had been done initially, because so many are so conditioned away from straightforward expression of their feelings. This conditioning has created a much bigger charge of unexpressed emotion than existed originally. Nonetheless, it can be resolved. Originally, only self-denial was taking place on earth, as no one had as yet thought of overpowering another. The denial present was the denial agreed upon by the spirits there. Overpowering came later when many spirits, who did not have the same ways of learning as the earth did, entered earth. These spirits exerted strong influence on earth to desert her own path and follow theirs. The openings these spirits found to do this through were the denials already present on earth, which they then steadily increased. If, in the beginning, the way to clear these undercurrents and denials had been known, this situation would have been resolved immediately. Since it was not known, the experience that has taken place has been necessary in order to learn. The social system on earth, in reflecting the denial, has not allowed much direct approach to problem solving. The direct approach would solve the problems that denial has tried to avoid. Instead, denial has been saying that conflict on earth is supposed to be solved according to laws and procedures already established and used whether applicable or not. If people don't fit the form, they are supposed to make themselves fit the form. This is backwards. Form is supposed to come in response to the people and the situation. While some have denied form in creation, by belittling its importance, others have denied it by aggrandizing it. Neither of these extremes holds the answer. Real help is what people need when there is conflict, not a settlement which is forced, whether people have agreement or not. That which cannot align with the settlement is forced to be held under current. Possibilities for denial are increased this way, and so is the explosive possibility of society, when undercurrents can no longer be held. This was only appropriate as long as denial was appropriate on earth. Now that denial is no longer appropriate on earth, the way of relating between people is needing change. Settlement needs to feel right to all parties involved, or it's not a real settlement. The guideline here is that no one has the right to force anything on another. Denial has been the opposition to direct settlement of this kind on earth before. In denying others, people have not even realized they've done it in many cases. When you've already denied things in yourself, it can be very hard to notice when you are denying those things in another. While in the process of clearing out any old denial you have, you can aid all of your interpersonal relationships by just observing this simple guideline. Do not impose your own approach on anyone else, and do not let anyone else impose their approach on you either. Try this out, and you'll see how far along you are in the practice of free will between people. You need to look at this closely, though, and see how much has already been denied in situations where you relate to other people. To understand your denial here, you need to feel your true feelings and let yourself hear all the thoughts you would normally push away from your relationships with others. Once you have all the information from your own being, you can make any adjustments you need to make in the relationship based on your own needs. The other people involved need to make their needs clear also. In making needs known, try to get to the bottom of them by seeking the source of the need rather than staying at the symptomatic level. You can seek the source by asking yourself why you have a certain need. If your answer is another need, ask yourself why you have that need. Follow yourself back this way until you find the denial you made in yourself that has been rendering you unable to fulfill this need in yourself. Then release the denial and allow yourself to fulfill the need. Fulfilling needs that involve other people maintains the balance point of free will, when nothing takes place that is against the free will of another. For example, do not let another person tell you how you should be relating. Instead, let that person express his or her feelings towards you. Then you have the opportunity to change the way you relate to that person, or to stop relating to that person. If you have to end a relationship with someone, you need to end it without judging that person or yourself. If judgments are already involved, you need to understand yourself enough to end the judgments and release the emotional charge around them. You can release yourself from the other person having any power over you by releasing all the feelings and judgments involved in the situation. In other words, feelings are for you to feel and express, but not for the purpose of manipulating others. So far, when people have tried to seek balance in the ways described here, they have met with obstacles that seem formidable. There are some notable examples which I want to point out. Whenever the legal system on earth has gotten involved in attempting to settle interpersonal problems, it has so far usually resulted in a denial of free will someplace. This has to change in the next few years because the earth is going to change in the next few years. The legal system has done the best it could given the spirits present on earth, but it can no longer impose its limits on spirits that do not have those denials within themselves, yet have been forced to accept those limits by the society in which they live. This brings me to another example of a seemingly notable exception to the process of balancing your free will with other people. Society has at present seemed to disallow any direct approach between people attempting to resolve conflicts in any way that does not involve heavy denial of true feelings. People, even more in recent times than in the past, have been labelled emotionally unstable, emotionally disturbed, and even insane, just for trying to express old charge on earth. These labels have been applied by people who are in a heavy state of denial themselves. I want to point this out because I've seen that many people on earth could have recovered their full spiritual presence already if they'd been allowed to express themselves as they needed to. Do not make an assumption that violence would have been involved here. The understanding you need is that the repression of the will's expression creates violence. Violence is the last resort of repressed will. Some spirits have denied their own will so extensively that additional denial by other people causes them to erupt in violence. You can protect yourself from this, however, by realizing what is really happening in the relationships you have with other people. You can easily spot serious denial if you have begun to notice denial in yourself. Denial needs acceptance too. Some denial can be approached with loving acceptance and some cannot. You can find out whether the denial you have encountered is ready for loving acceptance or not by approaching it with what you have to offer from your own true feelings. If the denial really accepts you, you will know it because you will feel it. If the denial does not accept you, you need to get away from it. I can handle anything I have created, but you are not me, and you cannot handle everything. It is no longer appropriate to continue the misunderstanding on earth that I have asked spirits to sacrifice themselves for others. Original cause in creation had this misunderstanding as a part of it. If you look at this thoroughly and follow it through as many implications as you need to understand it, you will see that it does not work. This even includes the raising of children. Children need an example of how to relate in a realistic manner with other people, and not more examples of how to further deny themselves and others. You cannot deny yourself without denying others. For example, if you deny yourself in order to do something for another person, how is that other person likely to feel if you are doing something for them that you do not want to do? It either does not feel good or denial is taking place. If you do really want to do it, why hand guilt to the other person by claiming you are doing it just for them? Undercurrent here is the judgment that the one denying self in favour of another is in spiritual superior position. Attempting to balance this later by allowing others to sacrifice themselves for you is not appropriate either. You need to feel this to know that I am right here. Another example that I want to point out is the practice of trapping people within society's limits when they have purposefully removed themselves in an effort to escape these limits. It is not the practice of free will to follow people out into the countryside and impose limits on them that, if appropriate at all, are only appropriate in concentrated population areas. When people are trying to get free, they have to be allowed to get free. It is not appropriate for one set of limits to cover the entire area where people have a chance to express themselves. Every minority, even if the minority is only one person, has to have a place in which it can express itself freely. And that place must be freely given, without strings attached, and without other members of society looking upon it judgmentally or considering taking steps to control it. No longer is any person to appoint themselves or anyone else the power to stop another person from expressing their own free will, unless that person is overriding free will in another. This balance point, which protects everyone from being overridden, definitely needs to be held present on earth at this time. Not only because it is always going to be the balance point, but also because people in the process of freeing their own wills might temporarily try to override another if they have denied their own power extensively. Polluting and poisoning are good examples of overriding the will of not only others but the earth itself. A planet has free will. Everything in creation has free will. You need to know that even your own body is only with you as long as it wants to be. The earth itself is already beginning to clear itself of the abuse and overriding it has received. In the near future, it's going to completely clear itself of all the denial it has received. In this process, the West Coast, the East Coast, the Mississippi River Valley, and all the land directly south of the Great Lakes in the United States is going to experience landmass shifts, so I suggest that you do not stay there. Your own recovery process needs to show you where to go and what to do when you get there. The recovery of your own true feelings is going to show you your own path of survival at all levels of your being. I've given warning of the coming times over and over on Earth, and most people have denied me here. I am now warning for the last time, in any way that is going to give you time to do anything about it at all. You must end your denial of me to remain on Earth, and you must also declare from your heart serious intent to end your own self-denial. The reality is that I've already seen how it is going to go on Earth. I have already seen who is going to listen to me this time and who is not. Even though I have already seen this, I still want all of you who have intent to heal yourselves right now to make a conscious statement to me. And even though I have only included in this book that which is applicable now to those intending to remain on Earth, I still want to point out that any overpowering of another, even slight and subtle, or any undercurrent pressuring of another to do as you want them to do, is no longer acceptable to me on Earth. Instead of fearing me now, I want you to express and release all the fear of me that you can, and then do the best that you can to end denial of yourself and others, and know that I'm a loving God that will make sure you find your right place, no matter where it is. The fact of the matter is that the coming Earth changes are not going to be easy, and some of you may want to ask me to lift you off the Earth until they are over. You have this option, and yet you might enjoy the changes. Instead of judging in advance of the situation, tell me out loud what your intent is now, and communicate with me frequently. Instead of judging me at all, accept me as the kind Creator that cares about what I've created, and accept that I'm willing to help you too. If you feel trapped by anything on Earth, you can ask for my help and get it. Form and graven images. The idea that everything is one is an accurate understanding, and yet differentiation and delineation is necessary in order to experience this oneness in manifestation. Form has something to teach, and experience cannot be denied. Consciousness on Earth has been quite confused about form and has denied many understandings about it. Misunderstandings about form, disrespect for form and denial of form have already imbalanced form so seriously several times on Earth that it could not express the consciousness within it. I then intervened several times in the past to straighten this out enough so that form could stay in manifestation. Manifestation in form must be respected even by those that do not understand its purpose. The purpose of manifestation is not fully understood on Earth, but manifestation must be accepted so that the experience can bring the understandings. Form cannot be judged to be beneath me. I am everything. When spirit shut me out of their consciousness by their own limits, I let them learn as long as possible on their own, and intercede only when the need arises to maintain the necessary balance. Because I have not seemed to intercede lately in ways that are clearly apparent to those denying me, the denial has seemed to prove its own judgments that I am not interested, don't exist, haven't any real powers, am beyond man or don't relate to man. Judgments held by the mental body and reacted to in the will have drastically limited the channels open for me to reach man in ways he recognizes as God. Refusal to accept and recognize me has created a strong illusion of separation between myself and man. Many deal with this by denying it, but the illusion is real enough for the ones experiencing it. Holding limits on me does not allow you to see me for what I really am, and this is not unlike worshipping a graven image. Form is a manifestation of essence, and must be aligned with essence in order to really express that essence. Confusion about form in the beginning caused many to deny their true form in favour of another form. In doing this, many had to deny some of their essence in order to take on a different form. Expression in form has been imbalanced because of the imbalance between the spirit and the will. True form needs to return. You can restore your own true form by aligning your spirit and your will. Because it is now my decree that imbalance needs to end, true form is going to return anyway. By taking the steps you can to align with me, you can make the process easier for yourself. At one time on earth, I gave everyone that could accept it human form temporarily to see if it would help them to work out confusion about form. I have watched this closely and I have clearly seen that even though I have restored balance in form several times already, these spirits have continued to deny essence that is really theirs, and their form is still trying to reflect this essence. Many on earth are not comfortable in human form, and yet they asked me for it, and told me their true form was not the form they wanted to have. I've given these spirits the maximum amount of time possible to give for experiencing a form other than their true form. The reality is that spirits must now accept their true form and realize that in this true form they can evolve best. Locking oneself into rigid form, flowing through form changes without realizing why, claiming that form is all there is and claiming that form is to be transcended, are examples of some of the ways in which form has been misunderstood and thus denied. Judgments about form and the accompanying emotional charge are needing release along with the rest of your release, so that physical body has the freedom to reflect true essence and express it. I want to point out that some spirits did not want their form to reflect their essence. These spirits denied that their original form did reflect their essence because they didn't want to be seen for what they were. This denial of form caused many others to become confused about form and essence and to begin denying their own true forms also. Some denied true form in an attempt to aggrandize themselves, and some denied true form in an attempt to diminish themselves. One effect of these denials was to pressure form toward becoming much more similar and much less differentiated than it is meant to be. This is another attempt to limit me by trying to limit my expression in form. All creation has free will. No spirit has ever been asked to express anything it has not chosen for itself. The denial of free will relative to form tried to say that I forced unwanted form on spirits that did not deserve it. This is yet another way of judging me. Form has been rather rigid on earth for quite some time, because the misunderstandings have been rigidly opposing the understandings. This rigidity has held back the intended evolution of form on earth, and I am now going to straighten this out along with everything else.